All right, we are done with our Ancient Civilizations project, and I applaud all the good work you put in during the research, but more importantly, during the oral presentations. I know that's a very difficult undertaking for a lot of you, and I applaud the courage that you showed for getting in front of the group. But from listening to the groups, there are some gaps that I'm hoping to fill in, and this is the purpose of this video. And we're going to start with one of the River Valley civilizations, the Mesopotamians. And the Mesopotamians were the first civilization in human history, and located in modern Iraq along the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which was known as the Fertile Crescent. And the Mesopotamians contributed writing, and they called it cuneiform. And with that cuneiform, they created the Epic of Gilgamesh, the first story in human history. And hate to be a spoiler, but the ending of Gilgamesh is when Gilgamesh returns, it's not the plant of immortality that he was seeking that was the gift. It was the story. And there's a fundamentally human overtone to that, that we live, we die, but the story remains. And that's what Epic of Gilgamesh gives us. And the first code of law in history that we have record of, Hammurabi's Code. Very strict, very harsh, but a landmark in human history. It also gave us one of the wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, there were 7 ancient wonders, and only one is still with us, the Pyramids of Giza. But they say this was 320 feet high, and obviously art is rendering, but if they could create this, clearly a very advanced people. I just think the wonders are cool. I don't need you to know that. I just think they're cool. What I do need you to know is what they invented. And these are things that we obviously use today. Bricks in our buildings, wheels, the reed sailboat, plow, time units of 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. This was a Mesopotamian innovation, the use of map, different forms of mathematics, board games. So the Mesopotamians, even though they were very ancient, influence our world today. The second River Valley civilization was Egypt. Now, Egypt is in northeast Africa along the Nile River, and here's one of the second wonders of the ancient world, the Pyramid at Giza. And I'm going to use some really heavy-duty scientific stuff here, really, really big. And the Egyptians, again, like the Mesopotamians, gave us some contributions we still use today. They had writing, hieroglyphs, but black ink. If you wrote notes in black ink, that's an Egyptian invention. Irrigation techniques, 365-day calendar, obviously surgery for all you youngsters that need to get your wisdom teeth removed. You have that to look forward to if you're wearing makeup, the first police force, beer, and again, this ex oriente lux, the light comes from the east. So if Western civilization, we say, begins in Greece, they got their influence from the Egyptians, among other ancient civilizations to the east of Greece. Now, this might be the most important archaeological find of all time. This is called the Rosetta Stone, and it's why we know so much about Egypt. And why this is an important find is that, you can't see this, it's very fine. Even if you could, you couldn't read it. But it's a stone record that's in 3 languages. It's in hieroglyphs, Demotic, which is their everyday language, and then Greek. And what we were able to do when this was found about 200 years and some change ago is take the Greek and then decode the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And that allowed us to know about the culture and what was going on with Egypt. And again, with these 8 ancient civilizations, some we have their language, some we don't. Obviously, we know more with those with the language. Now, speaking of a group we don't understand their language yet, people are working on that, the Indus Valley in modern Pakistan along the Indus River. Indus River, Indus Valley, easy to remember. Third of the 4 River Valley civilizations, and they were the masters of water. So this morning, if you woke up, used the restroom, brushed your teeth, and took a shower, all of that is Indus Valley technology. They have standard weights and measures. In chemistry class, you learn this, milliliters, and so on. A pound of ham is a pound of ham anywhere, if you go to the supermarket. If you're baking a cake, a cup of flour is a cup of flour. So having these standard weights and measures is really important. It provided the roots of Hinduism that we're going to get into very soon. But again, a lot of it is lost because of not understanding their language. There's no Rosetta Stone to crack the Indus Valley Code yet. But again, when you think of Indus Valley, the masters of water. Now, the fourth of the River Valley civilizations would be ancient China. And China is very ancient, 5,000 years old, and the early parts of it emerged along the Yellow River. And the Chinese had many of the things that the aforementioned three civilizations had, but they established them in the East. And legalism, this notion that human order is necessary to have success, is still very much with the Chinese people. And I would argue in successful organizations, order oftentimes is the foundation of that. In standardized writing and language, standardized money, systems of measurement, irrigation, all of these, the other groups had, but again, to establish that in the Eastern world was a very important contribution the ancient Chinese gave us, and multiplication. That's important to everybody. Now we're going to move away from the River Valley civilization to four more ancient civilizations, the fifth being the ancient Hebrews. Now the ancient Hebrews were located in the area of modern Israel, and four big items I need you to know about these people. The first is fairly simple: glass. Their proficiency in making glass was absolutely state-of-the-art for the time. If you think about where glass is, it surrounds us. It's in our cars. It's in our rooms. Glass is everywhere. Glass is shaped in many ways. It's very ubiquitous, which is your fancy SAT word for surrounding you where you're not even aware of it. Now, the next three are a little more involved. Now, the ancient Hebrews gave us the Torah. Now, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Numbers. And there's 613 rules that are stated in the Torah. It's the foundation of Judaism and the Old Testament for Christianity as well. Rule of law. This notion that people will come and go, but the laws stay the same, and that everybody follows those laws. Before this idea, whoever was in charge would have a set of rules. People would follow them. They would leave, a new person, new set of laws. Whereas this notion of rule of law is permanence. People will come and go. Laws stay the same. And then the Sanhedrin, which was the first way to run yourself with checks and balances. So in the United States today, we have lawmakers, law enforcers, law interpreters. That's the legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. And the Sanhedrin was the first to implement that concept. So 3 biggies: the roots of Judeo-Christianity, this notion of rule of law, and the first form of checks and balances. 3 more of our ancient civilizations: the Hittites. Now, the Hittites were the masters of metal. And similar to the ancient Hebrews, it's ubiquitous how we use metal. The legs of your desk are made of metal. Metal is shaped dozens and dozens of ways to the point we don't even notice it. And this use of metal, in particular iron, was a huge contribution. And again, with more metal, more civilization. And as we go from Neolithic to copper to bronze to iron, we see a change in human development. They were also pioneers in something called cultural pluralism, meaning many kinds of people living under one leader. There were 9 languages spoken in the Hittite civilization. Now, the United States is a culturally pluralistic country, even around Metro Detroit. Southwest Detroit, you'll hear Spanish spoken. You can go to West Bloomfield and hear Arabic and Yiddish. You can go to Farmington Hills and hear Urdu being spoken. We live in a very culturally pluralistic town, and we do pretty well as a country, I think. And this notion of living together despite being different is a Hittite innovation, I would argue. 2 more, so hang in there. Ancient Persia. Now, ancient Persia was the biggest thing the world had ever seen. Ancient Persia was enormous, and it took over former civilizations that I mentioned. And they grew and they grew and they grew because ancient Persia was not a bad place to be by any stretch of the imagination. Here's one of the 3rd wonders of the ancient world: the mausoleum at Halicarnassus. Woo, that's a tough word. And again, artist rendering, but if they can create this, clearly a very advanced people. Now, how they contributed to the world architecture. If you're familiar with the Islamic Center at 10 Mile and Middle Belt or any mosque, you will see a very similar architecture that you see here in this Persian architecture. They invented algebra, innovations in music and art, a postal service, military innovations, in particular archery. But this word here, federalism, is this idea that power resides at different levels. Our 10th Amendment of our Constitution is, federalism, that there are federal, state, and local. For example, the U.S. Army, U.S. Postal Service, that's federal. my hunting license, my driver's license, Michigan. Local concerns. How many dogs can you have in Livonia versus Redford? So power resides at different levels, and the Persians ran themselves that way very effectively. And the final group we learned about are the Oxen. Now, the Oxen, similar to the Indus Valley, we don't know their language, so we don't know as much about this group as other groups. We know they were master traders, okay? And we also know that they were located in Eastern Africa, in modern Ethiopia and Eritrea. And the Oxen had the idea of currency where different coins signify different currency. So in your wallet, if you have different rectangular green pieces of paper, 1, 5, 10, different meaning, that's an Oxen innovation. They were traders in commodities as ivory and salt. Now, salt was essential to survive during this time for food preservation and just for health. Nowadays in our diets, we have too much salt, high blood pressure, and heart disease. But back then, having salt was essential, and they got it to the people. Now, a Persian visitor described seeing the Oxen as one of the 4 greatest powers in the world. So they were doing very, very well. But again, we don't have that writing to study yet. Hopefully we find it someday. They were the first African people to convert to Christianity, and through archaeology it reveals them to be a kingdom with a variety of specialized jobs, and traders and tradesmen and all those sorts of things. And also from this project, hopefully it reiterated the 5 themes of geography, and these 5 items can describe any people in any time. And I'm glad we revisited those. But I want to end with this. Our final word about the project: research skills. I hope that you implemented Google Advanced. It's a wonderful tool. I hope you use it. It's going to be a tool you can use all the way through college. Also, refining your searches to just like Baby Bear's porridge, just right. Not too much detail, too little detail, and that's a good research skill. I put you in groups of people you didn't know, and I applaud people who were able to do that well. Again, whatever you do for a living, you're going to have to work with other people, even if you're comfortable with them or not. And those who do well are going to be more successful than those who don't work with teams. Those are called soft skills, and I'm glad we worked on those. Oratory skills: projection, enunciation, gesticulation, using your hands, proximity, getting close to your audience, being prepared. I hope we keep getting better at those. Now, I want to end with these 3 big points. Ancient civilizations are the foundation of the house the modern world rests upon. We have quite a house right now. We have computers in our pockets, and we've gone to the moon, and we're doing really, really well, but it's based on a foundation that the ancient world provided, inventions and innovations that are with us today. They all possess the 7 criterion to be considered a civilization. And collective learning. We have our body of knowledge based upon the knowledge of the past, and we keep building on it and improving on it. And when you look at human history, these 8 civilizations really provided those first, I keep overusing the word foundation, but I'm going to use it one more time, the foundation that our knowledge rests upon, and we've been building upon it ever since. So, again, thank you for your work on this project, and have a good day.